welcome back to Not Our Business Podcast. I am Kate.
And I'm Sydney.
And as promised, we are jumping into a true crime episode tonight.
Yay!
When we got to talking about what case we wanted to start with, we wanted to do a lesser known case, something that hasn't been overly talked about in social media or wherever. And Sydney actually mentioned this case, and right away I thought, I've never heard of that, and axe murders sound a little crazy to me.
Yeah, creepy.
But we'll give it a go. So before we jump in, I had two thoughts that I wanted to share. First one being, I was listening to some episodes, trying to research this case, reading articles, reading blogs, and I was just thinking to myself, how in the world did I get here? How did I start to get so much enjoyment out of listening to stories of people's worst day ever?
Absolutely.
And then sitting here and listening to a series on it. It's so enjoyable.
Yeah, there is something that tickles your brain about it.
There's something about it. The very first podcast I ever listened to that got me into podcasting as a whole was the Up and Vanished series that we listened to together.
Yes.
It was the very first one that I'd ever listened to. And we wouldn't listen to it at the same time, but I think we were kind of in sync with listening to the episodes.
I had to catch up to you.
You did. And we jumped in at a point where we could binge through a lot of it.
Yes.
If you haven't listened to that one,
it's very good.
It is very good. And there's
the production of it is just...
Yes. And there's a whole nice wrap up to the story with maybe not a happy ending.
No.
But a conclusion to that one.
So tonight we're going to talk about the Villisca Axe Murders that occurred in 1912 in Villisca, Iowa. 8 people were murdered in one house. Right? All within the same night. Yeah. So what we're going to talk about first is Villisca. At the time in 1912 was a small railroad community. A lot of agriculture. There was a booming business that was there. There's some transient people coming through with the railroad systems. But for the most part, it's a pretty established town. And everybody kind of knows everybody.
And what I saw at 1912, the town had been established for about 10 or so years.
Yes.
About a decade it had been around. And
correct.
Starting to boom at this point.
Yes, where it actually came together as an actual city. There's about 2,500 people that are there. So it's pretty good size. Remember, this is 1912, so they were just getting electricity, the railroad system. I mean, we're not talking a lot of technology. We're talking very rural area. If you've been to Iowa, I've lived there. It's still rural, though.
It's actually not far from where I grew up. It's only about 4 hours.
Yeah.
It's only 8 hours from here.
It's not that far.
It's a little too close.
A little too close for comfort. I was on the eastern side of Iowa, so... Shut up. So, yeah, everybody kind of knew each other, and violence really just didn't happen in this town. It wasn't something that was a common occurrence. So this really shook the community. Not only did it shake the community, it really shook America. And during this time, there was actually a couple different axe murders that were going on. But the one that we're going to talk about is going to be the Moore family. So I'm going to just kind of go over our main characters here, our victims. The first one we're going to discuss is Josiah Moore. He was a prominent businessman in the community. He had worked for F.F. Jones's agricultural business at one point. I did some research, and kind of the split that occurred with them is that Josiah was asking for more money. And F.F. Jones was like, no. And so Josiah was like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and start my own business. Well, with that, Josiah had the John Deere contract for farming equipment. So when he left, he took that business. But he also had his own farm, was married to Sarah. That's Sarah Moore.
And also on that, what I read, he opened his business across the street.
Yeah.
From F.F. Jones. He said, I'm not just going to do this. I'm going to do this right in front of you.
He was like, watch me.
And another note, John Deere in that area, still number one. You
can't
go through any of those little farm towns without seeing a John Deere implement.
So Sarah and Josiah, they marry, and I think it was 1899. And then they not long start to have children. They end up having 4 children. So there's Herman, who is 11. Catherine or Mary is 10. Arthur is 7. And Paul is 5. Okay. So
Those are not the names I know.
So some of them go by their middle names or their first names is what I found in my
Okay.
research.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I was listening to a couple things and then I was reading and it kept saying Mary, but then there were other ones that say Catherine. I was like, okay, it's got to be Mary Catherine or Catherine Mary. And so yeah, a lot of the sources showed their different names. So I don't know if like they went by different names.
Because I was gonna say I had a Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul.
Oh,
Yeah,
I haven't heard Boyd.
interesting.
So that's the Moore family. Okay, they all live in this house in Villisca where they do have a farm, even though Josiah does have a business in town. So the other 2 victims, because remember, there's 8 people who were murdered, are the Stillinger sisters. There's Lena and then there's Ina. And they are friends with Catherine.
Just talking about how they had a farm, and we'll kind of get into how they had farming animals and how that maybe plays into this. If you pull up like Google Maps of that town, the house is still standing. And it's in the middle of town. I mean, it's on the edge of town. But I found that really interesting. Back in that time, you could have a whole ass hobby farm right there in the middle of town. And that was the norm.
That was absolutely normal.
Where today, you're limited to maybe 6 chickens, and that's if your city allows it.
Well, they just now passed it.
I know.
To have chickens. I'm like, I need 2 because I need fresh eggs.
Yeah, I was pulling that up, and I was like, they could have cows and pigs and whatever they wanted. But that was normal. That was normal.
Well, yeah, because
to be in town and like that.
Yeah. Agriculture was like number 1. That's how you sustain yourself.
Yep.
So yes, then there's the Stillinger sisters who were over at the house that night. So those are our main characters, our victims of this story. They're the ones who unfortunately their lives were cut really short. So I think the killer probably didn't anticipate that there was going to be more than 6 people there. We can get a little bit more into that, but going into it, I think he probably got a little bit more than he bargained for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's some different theories in it, but I think what we'll kind of dive into next is the timeline of what happened that evening leading into them going home and what ended up happening.
Yeah, so the timeline.
Yes.
The timeline's important.
Yes.
In any case, because you have to make sure that you know what happened in the order that it happened. So with our family, the Moores, they went to the Presbyterian Church Children's Day that Sarah actually had organized for the community. And it was where children came and they performed music, they played piano, so on and so forth. And it was in the evening time. So that went on till about 9:30. Okay. So from 9:30, Ina and Lena, they were supposed to go to their grandmother's that night, but the lights were all out in the city. And that was because there was a dispute with the Villisca City Council and the electric company regarding their contract. So this night was pitch black. It was also super overcast. There was no starlight, no moonlight. So it was dark. The girls were scared.
Yes.
And so Mary was like, don't worry, you can spend the night at our house. And so her parents said yes. Josiah called over to the Stillinger house. He actually got in touch with their older sister, who the older sister was like, my mom's not here, but that's okay. Don't worry, I'll let her know. So everybody decides to walk home. So they're all walking home to the Moore house.
In the pitch black.
In the pitch black. This is the last time anybody sees them alive. Ever again. Okay?
And remind me, they got home after? No, they got home.
About 10 is what they're thinking.
Okay.
So then about 10:30, they estimate that probably the family goes to bed. So the way that the house is laid up, upstairs, Josiah and Sarah sleep on one side in one room, and all 4 of their kids sleep in the other bedroom upstairs. Then the Stillinger girls are downstairs in the guest room. So that's the layout of the house.
And the guest room is kind of right as you walk into the house, right off the parlor.
Right. Correct.
I also had to Google what a parlor is. It's not in today's real estate vocabulary.
No, it is not. It is definitely not a parlor. But the parlor was a huge room back in the day. Like, that was where the community of the family happened. And so that's our layout. So we've got mom and dad and kids all upstairs. We got Stillinger sisters downstairs. So around the time of about midnight to 5 a.m. is the estimated time of death. because they can't really pinpoint it. They were just coming into the technology of kind of estimating death and learning about rigor mortis and things like that. At what point does the body start to, ultimately decay? Actually, in the early morning, there were accounts of a suspicious person that was observed seeing kind of fleeing from the back and leaving town on an early train. However, as we'll look at a couple other things, that wasn't super odd because there were a lot of transient people around there at the time. But the next time that's important is the morning hours. Between 6 and 7, Mary Peckham, the neighbor, notices that Sarah isn't outside hanging laundry to dry, and the kids aren't outside playing. And what we have to understand is back in those days, I mean, it was very regimented. You were doing laundry every morning. Your kids were going to be outside playing. They were going to be doing chores. Animals were going to be fed. If you live on a farm, you got to feed your animals, right? Right. They don't just get their cereal by themselves. So Mary just thought that was really odd. And the house seemed oddly quiet. And that was unusual. So she calls over to Josiah's brother, which is Rossmore, and says, hey, can you come over, just check and make sure I'm not hearing anything. Ross comes over at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and he's kind of going around the house looking, knocking on the door. Nobody's answering.
And all the shades are pulled, so the windows haven't been open for the day or anything. No movement.
It's just dead. Like, it's static at this point. And Ross is like, I'm just going to go ahead and let myself in. He has a spare key. Or he finds the spare key. I saw different accounts. So he opens the door, walks in through the parlor. He does find the Stillinger girls, deceased, unfortunately. At that point, he goes out, and different accounts on this one, too, that he told Mary to, call the sheriff, but also I read accounts that he said, go call the neighbors. So like they kind of like a phone tree, right? Yeah. To this person to call this person to this person. So news travels fast, in a small town anyways. Right. As I'm sure you're aware.
Even to this day. It's not a 1912 thing.
It's not a 1912 problem. It's a today problem. So this news is traveling fast. But the sheriff does come over.
And when you say sheriff, it's not, when you think of sheriff today, what I found was Villisca didn't really have a police force because there, like you said, there wasn't much of a crime. So it was more of like a peace officer for what this role actually was. So it wasn't anybody trained to preserve a crime scene.
Not an officer like we think of today.
No. So his name was Marshal Hank Horton, and he was the primary police officer. Right. Peace officer, whatever it is.
So Marshal, he comes over and he does a sweep of the house. And then goes upstairs only to find Josiah, Sarah, Herman, Catherine, Arthur, Paul, all bludgeoned to death. I mean, this scene was brutal. We're talking an axe into somebody's skull and face. It was brutal. Right around that time also, I think it was about 10 o'clock, because remember, Mary called neighbors. So people in the town started finding out about this. And of course they were scared and wondering what in the world's going on. So people start to come over to the house and they start to tour the house and look at the bodies.
So at this point too, after Marshal Horton has been notified, he sees the crime scene. Neighbors, they know. At this time, when you wanted to call somebody, you didn't just pick up the phone and call them. No. You had to pick up the phone, dial into an operator, and that operator then connected you with the other party. They didn't just get off the phone at that point. They stayed there. Dream job.
I know, like,
dream job. And as you would assume, these are chatty ladies.
Oh, so,
there's no, like, HIPAA, there's no confidentiality, nothing like that at this point.
Nothing.
So they are also helping spread information at this point.
Yeah.
And it was around anywhere between, it's hard to say timeline because everything you find is a little different, but the parents to Lena and Ina tried calling the home. The operator told her, we can't connect you with that house. Everybody in that house is dead.
I did hear that. Yes. Could you imagine?
What do you say?
Gee, thanks.
Yeah, okay, have a nice day. I couldn't imagine that any of this anyways.
Yeah.
But you call and wonder where your girls are. And also keep in mind, not that the parents wouldn't have approved of them staying over.
Right.
It was such an odd, it was just freak events that led to those girls even being in that house.
Absolutely.
They shouldn't have even been there.
No. And I did read that the older sister, I mean, she was tore up from the floor up.
I would imagine so.
She felt so guilty because she was the one that was like, yeah, they can stay the night and da-da-da-da, which would have been fine any other time. Right. Unfortunately, this was just one of those,
you don't really plan for these kinds of things.
You sure don't. I mean, if you are, you got issues. Now, in the early 1900s, there was a lot of macabre and obsession with death. Death was very prevalent in this time because there wasn't, our healthcare system was completely different. Like I said, they were just learning about medical, autopsies and things of that nature. Mortality rates were high for infants and things of that nature. So there was a different relationship with death. Mm-hmm. They were more comfortable being around dead bodies. Whereas today, I know for myself, I don't want to go to a wake. I don't want to do the, observing. Yeah. They're breathing. I swear it, So the neighbors come in, the town comes in, the community, and they're walking around the home and they're taking souvenirs. There are people who actually took skull fragments of Josiah for souvenirs.
As a souvenir.
Yeah. And I mean, we think about that now and we're like, what in the world? But I mean, same thing with Bonnie and Clyde. You've got that 20 years later. So, I mean, this is something that was kind of an integral part of our culture at one point. Weird. But respectfully weird.
And when you think of how these people were murdered, yes, it's an axe murder, but maybe we talk a little bit about, so what I read was they weren't just, how the bodies were found. Mm-hmm. They believe everybody that was killed, with the exception of one person, was likely sleeping, or they were found in their sleeping position. So they weren't awake, or they weren't awake long enough to realize what was happening around them. So the killer was strategic in how he went around. He started with the parents, but had to have done it in a way that was so quiet. He was able to slip through the entire house.
The thing that occurred is that there was a reporter that was actually sent out to the site during this time, and he took a picture. And it was immediately destroyed.
That's right. Ross, the brother,
was so upset by this and distraught. He took the camera and he destroyed it. And as we know today, photo evidence is so important because we can see how was it laid out, how are the bodies, things like that. And maybe it picked up, a piece of evidence that we didn't see before. So we unfortunately don't have that. Mm-hmm. So it is a bummer. Because I think had we not had the parade of people and we had a picture, we probably could have pieced some other things together. So really after that, we'll get into the evidence because after they had to call the National Guard in.
Just to keep people out.
Just to keep people out of this house. This is how insane it kind of evolved. So National Guard comes in at about 10 o'clock, and they finally get the crowds to calm down, get out, and then they can start investigating.
And the 10 o'clock a.m. So this is all happening fairly quickly.
Like, it's this. We're going to talk some evidence. We're going to talk about the crime scene. What did we find? What's going on? Where are we at? Because all we know at this point are people are dead. The odd thing about the evidence is that it's so odd. There's no real pattern, right? So one of the first things that we already mentioned was that all of the windows were covered. So all of the shades were done. Now, a couple different things about this. They probably closed all their shades before they went to bed. That wouldn't have been unusual.
Yeah.
But they were all covered. Not only were the windows covered, but all of the mirrors were covered with some type of linen or piece of clothing. Okay.
Well, and I've heard that during this time, when it came to funerals or somebody passing, that was what you did, is that you did cover mirrors.
Yes. So
that wasn't necessarily an unordinary thing, but the fact that this killer and still followed that.
Absolutely. And then also I read that the victims were covered.
Yes.
So their faces.
Their blankets.
Right. So, yes, at the time, covering mirrors, they really had a thing, especially coming out of the Victorian era, mirrors were, a portal. And even still to this day, same theory applies that, mirrors can be portals. So they really wanted to make sure nothing was coming in or going out. But I think what is even more so about this is that what we know more about killers today is when they're doing something that they inherently know is wrong, right? They don't want to see themselves doing it. And we also know that usually killers that know their victims will cover the faces because they're so at odds with what they just did to the person that they know. Not that they have to know the person, but that's not unusual.
It adds a level of separation between your act and the person you're doing it to.
Well, at this point, we don't know, is it a religious ritual? Is it superstition? Is it avoiding the reflection? But we do know that that is a piece of the crime scene. There's also a bowl of bloody water that's discovered in the kitchen. So the theory is, did he try to wash up before he left? Did he try to clean up maybe the victims or clean up walls or anything? I mean, if you're bludgeoning people with an axe, I mean, you're going to be there for a while cleaning up.
Yeah, he must not have tried too terribly hard.
No, I think
or
it was
he cleaned something.
Right. I'm thinking he's probably, because you got to leave.
Yeah.
And you can't have blood drenched all over you. Because people are going to be like, what is this?
It was a weird time, but that wasn't a normal thing during this time.
Right. Well, we've got a bowl of bloody water. We also have uneaten food on the table. So.
Helped himself to a snack.
Yeah. It looks like he's preparing something, but he doesn't eat it. So they think maybe he might have eaten some of it, but for the most part, I mean, it was an uneaten plate of food. And we know that the family didn't leave it out because they went to bed and they put everything up. The thing that I found odd was the kerosene lamps.
Yes.
So kerosene lamps is, they're these lamps that we see them all the time in the Midwest. They're huge here. But down at the bottom, there's going to be an oil reservoir. And then there's a wick. And then there's this, tubey thing.
It's like a glass.
A flume, I think is what it was called.
Yes.
But it comes on and off, right? Just in case you guys don't know. So
you've likely seen them in antique stores or something.
Absolutely. Like so
but that was their main source of light. So there wasn't like wired lights into the house.
No.
This is how they
were navigating.
Okay. Gotcha.
So they were able to see at night. So there were kerosene lamps. They're chimneys, not flames.
Chimneys.
Yes. Okay, so the chimney part was removed. And then one was located on the base of the stairs, and then one was in the floor where the Stillinger girls were. So there were two different ones. The Stillinger room makes sense because he wanted to see what he was doing. But the other one being at the base of the stairs, I heard it was there, and I've also heard that that particular one was also found in the master bedroom. So a little discrepancy there. Next thing that was found is the slab of bacon. Yeah, a slab of bacon.
This is one of the details that I would be okay not knowing.
Yes.
What it was for or what happened with it.
But there's also controversy on it.
So let's talk about it.
Okay, so the slab of bacon. So bacon didn't come pre-sliced at this point, okay? So you literally had a chunk of bacon and then you'd have to slice it, right? So this was probably in their icebox, a refrigerator or freezer for you youngins. I've also found that it was found on the Stillinger girls' floor, in between their beds. And then I also heard it was in the kitchen. If it was in the girls' room, the theory is that the bacon grease was used for pleasuring himself after he had killed the girls. Because they did find Lena in a exposed position. So that's one thing. When I first heard it, immediately I was like, I can't do this. I need to stop. I can't get that.
It's heavy. I mean, the whole case is heavy, but
to add that on top of it, it's just like a slap in the face.
It's another detail of I can't process any of this, and now you add this onto it, and I need to walk away for a minute.
I did. I had to pause it. And I had to walk away and breathe and be like, the other theory was that he pulled out the bacon because the uneaten food. Maybe he was going to cook.
What I found was the bacon was found right next to the bed.
Yes.
Okay.
It was found by the axe. The axe was like leaning up against the wall. And so everything was kind of left in the Stillinger, the guest room.
So at this point, the killer enters the home. At some point, we don't know if he enters before or after they get home.
So that's a theory that we'll go into.
He starts with the parents, goes to the 4 kids upstairs, then goes down, ends at the Stillinger sisters' bedroom. Here we have where the axe was left, slab of bacon, all mirrors covered, and all bodies have been covered with some sort of fabric.
Yes. And then we've got 2 more pieces of evidence that they found. So the next one is a missing key fragment. They're not really sure if it was a keychain or a key, but it's a small fragment that nobody could really decipher that it was associated with the Moors. But it's so small and minuscule that they couldn't really make out what it was for. They're kind of thinking maybe it was the killer's key. Maybe he had a key to the house. They're not really sure.
With the key thing, one thing to keep in mind too, houses that were built during this time as well, keys weren't all that unique. So
yeah, that's true.
If you think of like an old style key, locks weren't as secure as they are now. So
Absolutely not.
It would be common where you could have a key that could open multiple doors.
Yes. The skeleton key.
Yes. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
And the other thing is that you also have to remember people didn't really lock their doors. This was a community that really didn't have. And in reality, a lot at the time, there wasn't a lot of this going on. There was a lot of trust within communities that you didn't feel like you had to. But our last piece of evidence were the gouge marks in the ceilings from the swings, which really is going to lead us into the unfortunate part of how family was killed. But obviously, the weapon was an axe. And then what we really get from this is there was strength that was occurring.
Strength, stamina, an agenda.
Yeah, there was rage, whether that was rage at the individuals or just rage in general. There was a lot going on with this person to be able to upswing that many times and get that many gouge marks.
And also, they found that the killer how they found the slash marks and how the bodies were massacred, the killer would likely have been left-handed.
Really?
Left-handed.
I didn't see that. That's interesting. You know what's very interesting about that is there were a lot of left-handed people, but it was kind of like there was bad blood if you were left-handed. Like there was. Yeah, like people thought like you were of the devil if you were left-handed. They would beat it out of you and you would have to use your right hand. So it's interesting.
That is because today you're left-handed and you show any athletic ability, it's straight to D1 athletics.
They're like, come, we give you golden.
You're one of the chosen people.
But there's a couple different theories. So I'm going to go over the likely theory that they have been talking about and how this murderer came through the house real quick. Now that we know who's dead, what was found, and where we're at. Okay? So, theory number 1 is the killer waited in the attic. Waited for the family to get home, to get nestled in, lulled into a false sense of security. And so they did find 2 cigarette butts upstairs in the attic.
That were not the cigarettes that Joseph Moore smoked.
Yes, correct. So, which was odd, because why else would you have cigarettes?
I mean, they did have an almost teenager at that time, but...
I mean, the odds of that.
Yeah, it was a very odd detail.
Yeah. So, the thought is, he's in the attic, they all fall asleep, he comes down. Josiah is the first to get killed. Okay? This killer is methodical, right? You gotta get the adults out. Who's the strongest person in the house? It's Josiah, right? He's going to be the one that's going to be able to stop him if anybody's going to stop him. Josiah not only is killed first, but he takes an amazing amount of blows.
You almost wonder, he almost had to have just done like an instant blow to their head.
Yes.
Then circle back around for the gore of it. Because how else?
I don't disagree because, one of the things that I don't understand is that from what I have read, when you smack a skull, it's a loud noise. It's a crack. It's amazing that nobody really wakes up, except for one.
Right.
And so Josiah is the first to get these blows, right? And then Sarah is the next, unfortunately, to die. So after all 4 children are killed, he goes downstairs, finds the other girls, kills Ina. Well, Lena is believed to have been awake during the murder because they find defensive wounds on her forearm. Not only that, she's found kind of cross on her bed. So instead of laying straight, right, she was found kind of like this.
And pulled down a little bit.
And pulled down. Yep. And she's the one, unfortunately, that is exposed. Okay, so that is a real brief rundown of the crime, the evidence, and where we're at.
It's a lot. It's a lot of information to process. And of course, there's, depending on what you listen to, what you read, there are some discrepancies.
Absolutely.
It is 1912.
Forensics aren't what they are today.
They aren't. But I'm actually really impressed what we do have to work from.
Absolutely.
Just from word of mouth, witness testimonies.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of witness testimonies, that means that there was a whole justice system that came into play at some point,
right,
which leads us to suspects.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into
it. So there are a handful of different people suspected, obviously, of doing this brutal crime. One of them being Andy Sawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Right away. So the murders happened June 12th. Mm-hmm. June 18th of the same year, somebody was arrested. His name was Andy Sawyer. There was a bridge foreman at the railroad. Said Andy approached his crew at 6 a.m. that morning. Mm-hmm. He wore a suit covered in mud and was all wet. Mm-hmm. He asked for a job and he was hired on the spot. That evening, the men saw the murder story in a newspaper. It was already published in the newspaper and word was spreading. And they said that Andy was absolutely obsessed with the case.
Yeah, my dad was really into it.
I mean, I kind of am too.
He was fascinated by it.
He was. He would talk continuously to the crew about who they thought might have done it and just wouldn't leave it alone.
Yeah, no, he was talking to everybody about it.
Sawyer also slept with an axe.
I was going to say, did you also see the evidence?
Yes.
But he also slept fully clothed.
And he was in town the night of the murders, and he wanted to leave because he said he wanted to leave right away because he didn't want to be suspected of doing it.
Unfortunately, Black Americans in that town, they also were like, we're booking it because they didn't want to be wrongly accused and hung, you know. So
the lynching law was a big thing during this time.
In effect.
And when I say he said he was in town the night of the murders and that he wanted to leave because he didn't want to be a suspect, it was later found that he was not, in fact, actually in town.
Yes.
He was in Osceola, Iowa, during the time of the murder. So he ended up being rolled out.
Yeah, I saw that. As soon as I saw that, I was like, guy's just weirdly obsessed with things.
He just wants to be a part of it.
Yeah,
he wants a piece of the story.
He wanted his 15 minutes of fame, for sure.
That leads into the second suspect. Joe and Sarah had a niece named Faye Van Gilder. She was 16 years old. And during this time leading up to the murder, she was visiting them. She was in the area. She was accosted by a man who was around the house while she was there. She said the man ran into her on Saturday before the murders, asked her where the Moore family was and where they could be found. He was also seen leaving Villisca on a train in shoes covered in blood. This man's name was Joe Ricks, and he was from Illinois. The only other detail I got on him was he was brought in by police to be identified by Faye, and she said that was not the man. And that's the only details I have on Joe Ricks.
Gotcha. There was nothing corroborating anything.
There was a dead end for Joe Ricks. 2 years go by. There's no leads. Yeah. It's getting cold. So at this time, Dillinger family and the Moore family hired a private investigator to come in from the Burns Detective Agency. William Burns specifically, and he is considered to be the American Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, nice.
He sent James Wilkerson, one of his he didn't do it himself. He sent James Wilkerson to Villisca. So Wilkerson actually poses as a man trying to sell land while working undercover, and asking people who he thought killed the family. He is in town for 2 years undercover, and he finally reaches out to Ross Moore, and he unveils his true identity. He told Ross that he thinks he knows who committed the murders. As Wilkerson built his case against a prominent member of town, F.F. Jones.
Yeah.
Wilkerson released these findings in a newspaper article.
The only way to do it.
The only way. Extra, read all about it.
Right? Like, I'm sure they sold like hotcakes.
Absolutely. Like, that's the only way, unless you're an operator on the phone getting all the juicy details and all the hot new goss. So Wilkerson releases a news article with his findings, suspicious of F.F. Jones. But this is at the time that F.F. Jones is rerunning for the Senate during his election.
Perfect timing.
It really, politics today are no different.
Absolutely not.
No different.
So was Wilkerson trying to not help him with his campaign, I take it?
No.
He was like, yo, you a murderer.
You heard about these murders happening? This is your guy right here. Do not vote for him. Yes, the article stated that Jones hired a hitman named William Mansfield to kill Joe Moore. Mansfield said he would, but that he needed more time.
Right.
So he needed to figure out his plan. Mansfield was given the nickname Blackie from Wilkerson. So giving him this Blackie nickname gave him the connotation he was black, trying to tie Black Americans to this case, which then drove the Black Americans away from this town.
Absolutely.
Because, like I said, the lynching law was
pretty
common during this time. Absolutely not.
I would have been like, we're outie.
This then led the town being referred to as a sundown town, meaning rampant with crime. So until this time, the town was booming and growing, and the things that happened within this news article and
it really just destroyed.
And the series of events, it really started to destroy.
That's so sad.
The town's growing.
Yeah.
Abilities. So with this theory that F.F. Jones hired a hitman, it would likely be, if you were to have that thought process, it's because obviously the clashing of the business.
Right.
He's a prominent figure. He's got influence and he has power.
Absolutely.
There's another part to this story that, depending where your research comes from, not all articles reference this, but F.F. Jones did have a son. His name was Albert, and he was considered and seen to be kind of weak and he didn't come off as strong of a man as F.F. Jones. He was married to Donna Bentley, and she was having multiple affairs, which were confirmed by the phone operators.
These phone operators, man.
Like I said, it'd be my dream job if I could
just sit trying time
and take note and then go have an afternoon tea with my besties with my notes. I would pay to have that job.
Let me pay you. Okay?
Let me pay you. I will donate my time. So phone operators confirmed the multiple calls from another man because they were on the line at the time Albert got home and found another man in his home. There was an altercation. A gun was shot. Another man was shot in the thumb or something like that. So it was likely an accidental shot, something like that. But the man that was there is not the man that was found to have been calling her house the most. The person that was calling her house the most was Joe Moore.
Yeah.
That's where it gets interesting for me, and that's where I feel like there's just constant turns, because if you add the business conflict on top of him having an affair, an alleged affair, is motive. If you look at a case today, there's money, power, sex, all of it. Motive is, in my opinion, for F.F. Jones. The investigation into Wilkerson, it did lead to an arrest, but it was found that there was not enough evidence to go to trial, so it was at that point dropped. During that time, they were adamant that they saw F.F. Jones and Mansfield communicating and working together. When it came time for investigating that, those jurors then recanted their story and said that they didn't remember what happened.
The witnesses?
Yes, the witnesses, I'm sorry. One of those witnesses was one of F.F. Jones's employees. It was dropped. It never went to trial.
Mm-hmm.
Mansfield does appear to possibly be in Illinois. I guess there were pay stubs during the murders, so he was never actually indicted. There were other serial killers, including axe murder, this time and around the area. I just thought it was really odd that Mansfield's wife, her parents, and their infant son were all found slaughtered with a frickin' axe 2 years later.
Absolutely.
But this case obviously maybe planted opportunity in people's minds.
I think
into people's dark minds.
Absolutely, but I think another thing that we want to mention is that an axe during this time was a very common tool in the house. It was the equivalent of us having a hammer. And not that we all go around hammering people to death, but this was something that was in the house. It wasn't like they were going out and, they had to purchase an axe. It was really weird to us, but it wasn't that odd for an axe to
Not during that time.
Absolutely not. But there were a lot of axe murders during this time. Actually, between 1910 and 1912, there were a large amount of axe murders that occurred.
So there's 2 more suspects that are prominent in the case.
Yes.
What are the last 2?
We've got Henry Lee Moore, and he was later convicted as an axe murderer. So he is actually known to have murdered. He actually murdered his mother and grandmother to death with an axe after the Villisca murders. So after this happens, they start to look at him a little bit more because it was definitely a similar method and the way that they operated. Quick fun fact about the case, they did call in a fingerprint specialist because at the time that was the technology that they did have. His name was J.H. Livingston. So he was hired to come out. As soon as he got off the train, he was so drunk that they were like, we didn't know what to do. They just kind of gave him a glass of water. But he was too drunk to actually really give a professional opinion. Okay. So that did get kind of tossed out just because, unfortunately, the subject matter expert was not in a condition to talk about it. So the last suspect that we'll talk about is the Reverend George Kelly. And so people really like him as a suspect because he seems to fit the mold for it. However, there are some issues. So Reverend George Kelly was a traveling minister who happened to be in Villisca, Iowa the night of the murders. He did have a history of mental health issues, along with some inappropriate behavior. He was a peeping Tom. So he'd be going to the windows and checking people out while they're undressing. He did ask some girls inappropriate questions. So this is an individual that clearly is just a little bit off.
He was also watching the church play that evening.
Yes, he was in attendance. So he was staying at a house in town. And after they showed him his room, he decided he was going to go out for a walk. So this is based on his confession. So what I'm going to say next is from George Kelly himself, is that when he went outside, he stated that he saw a dark shadow figure. And at that time, he began to follow that shadow figure. And that figure started to narrate to him. What he did here is a specific Bible verse, which was, "Suffer the children to come unto me." From that, he said he was acting as a divine instrument to save the children. And to him, what that meant was he needed to murder them. And so he said that he went into the house, and that's where he committed the murders. So he was tried. First time, it was a hung jury of 11-1 for an acquittal. And the second was in November of 1917, and they acquitted him entirely. So the issue with Kelly is that he had severe mental illness. They think that he had schizophrenia. They think that he either imagined it or he was in some capacity. Some people think that he may have seen something, which then just kind of built into something else.
Everybody knew enough details of the case to know an idea of what happened. But I also read a lot of what he said his story was contradicted a lot of the evidence they had as well.
Absolutely. And it kept changing. There was no consistent story. The only thing that they had was a guy who confessed.
Yeah.
And I think at that point they were just like, we got to do something here. The people are unhappy. This family doesn't have any justice. So the other issue with this individual, he's about 5'2" and 119 pounds.
He's tiny.
He's small. And the amount of force to have gouge marks in your ceiling from upswinging, and to do that 8 times.
8 times.
Not just 8 times, one swing, but to 8 people with 20 to 30 blows.
Yeah, it doesn't add up to me, but I do have a fun fact about Reverend Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
He is left-handed.
I love that. I mean, it does make sense. And I mean, if he was, let's just say he was in a manic episode, right? And he was just going full force with it.
It's not a way out there theory, but yeah, Reverend Kelly isn't where my mind goes to after hearing what I've heard of the case.
Yeah. He's not it for me. Mm-mm. I don't think he did it. Mm-hmm. I think he had some things going on with him, but I just don't think that he was the murderer. I just don't.
Yeah, I agree.
Last suspect, Paul Mueller. So in 2017, Bill James and Rachel McCarthy James, they theorized that Mueller was a cross-country serial killer. And this individual targeted sleeping families across the Midwest. He also covered mirrors of his victims. That was a very hallmark card for him. Mm. And so they have written a book about it, The Man on the Train. And I found that very interesting. And this is actually the theory that I align most with.
Okay.
Just because there were so many going on at this time, and they all kind of seem to follow the same pattern. Mm-hmm. So I would say that this is probably the lines that I fall under.
If you look at crime cases today, you would that is the route to try and solve a case. The suspect that I just keep feeling I can't get past F.F. Jones. I get a slimy feeling. Mm-hmm. There's so many details here that just I can't get past. He has the most to gain. Who has the most to gain from something like this? Where's the motive?
Right.
Sex, power, money.
But he didn't actually get anything out of this because he never was actually voted back in again. His career was kind of dead in the water after this.
At this point, yes, after you get through the investigation and everything that came out of it. But when you are sitting in a powerful position,
I don't disagree.
Rules don't apply to you. Mm-hmm. And so there are circumstances that obviously somewhat exonerate these parties, but when I'm reading through these things, and the man went and he did the same thing to his wife and in-laws and his own infant child.
But that was back in 1914.
It was.
He had done it prior. Yes. So, I mean, he knew how to do it. Yes. I'm not saying that you're wrong.
I know. And
I don't see there's no physical evidence. And not that there has to be, but nothing's been corroborated. Like, nothing has ever been concrete enough to say that that's, I'm
going to read this book.
Yeah.
What is it called?
So the book is called The Man from the Train, Discovering America's Most Elusive Serial Killer.
Okay. I need to check that out.
Absolutely.
So, with that,
yes,
I started listening to podcasts, reading articles, doing my investigation for this case. And as I said, when you mentioned this one, I'm like, I don't know about axe murders.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's really whatever, but it's really cool that it's from our area. Mm-hmm. It's close to home.
Yeah.
Let's give it a go. I pull up pictures of this house and I'm really diving in and I'm thinking, this looks really familiar to me. This sign says there's a sign in front of the house. You can actually go stay at the house and do ghost tours.
Absolutely.
You can visit it. And they have made the house kind of shrine and they put it back to its original character,
which I love.
What it would look like during this time.
Mm-hmm.
My father-in-law is huge into ghost hunting and doing the paranormal activities and stuff like that. Him and my brother-in-law stayed in this house and did the ghost tour.
Did they have experiences?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, do they have evidence?
Father-in-law has a video where they are downstairs and there is movement upstairs. They hear dragging footsteps.
Yeah.
And they think it's the dragging of the axe.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool.
And they have other things that they use for energy and activity that they use that he said maybe some orbs, but maybe it was dust within his camera. He wasn't sure. But I talked to him and my brother-in-law, and they said it was just a wild experience. They spent the night in the house.
I don't know if I could do it. I mean, I want to do it, because I love paranormal. I watch all the paranormal shows. I don't know. I'm into it. I have my own, gig with that.
But once you get there and you hear something, you're like, that's enough.
Yeah, immediately I'm like, okay, well, I had my experiences for the night, let's go.
Yeah.
But no, and that was one of the things that I found, like, to this day, there is still paranormal activity there. They have a museum, like you said, you can stay there. They did redo the house to be as if it was 1912.
I'll show you the pictures that he got from it after this.
I can't wait.
I was so excited to tell you that. I almost texted you right away, and I'm like, nope, I'm going to wait and tell her.
I love it. But yeah, people report there's voices, children laughing, objects moving, shadow figures, sudden cold spots. I also read that some people, they'll start to get ill, and they have to run out of the house.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes sense. You had a mass tragedy. And if we look at things like, is it really a haunting or is it a memory of the house? Is the house just replaying it because it's wood? And, we can talk about this later, but the wooden tape theory or whatever it's called, where things get transposed onto living matter, and then the house replays it again. Or is it actively the Moors and the Stillingers still there, is the question. And if it is, can they please tell us who?
Right.
We want you to have justice.
Here, tell us.
Yes.
The paranormal stuff, I'm a little bit mixed with paranormal energy, just because you never know who you're actually interacting with. Absolutely. I get very weirded out by that, and when there's a big question mark on what kind of entity is this, I veer on the side of Jesus. But
lighten up, yes.
So I will not let myself get close to that.
Yeah.
But I love to sit and listen to their stories. I will not be partaking
in the investigation.
But I do love to hear about it.
Yes.
And hear the experiences. So I was so excited when I connected those dots and he sent me some photos.
How wild. We'll post them if it's okay with him.
Yeah, I'll make sure he's okay with it. We'll post them.
That'll be great. I love that.
This was our first case, and unfortunately, there's no resolve there, no closure.
There's not a conclusion. But I think the thing is, this isn't to glorify the killer. I think it's important to remember the Moore family, the Stillinger sisters, they were human beings. They had a life. And unfortunately, those children just didn't get to have a long life. And bringing awareness to the case that, these are human beings.
While I was researching everything, I was very curious to look into, it would be very extended at this point, but maybe some living relatives down the line to see what they might be doing to kind of keep
their memory
alive.
Absolutely.
So maybe I will pick my father-in-law's brain on some more cases that he found interesting because that man will find, he'll travel for these cases and he's got some good intel on it. So what do we want to dive into next for our next true crime? Do we know yet?
I don't think we know yet.
We don't know yet. We'll figure it out, but
I'm sure it'll be something good.
It will. This has been...
I enjoyed this one.
I consider myself an amateur detective, so
absolutely. You are.
Give me a case.
I'll find it.
And we'll get on to it. So, thanks for sticking around this far. It has been so much fun diving into this case. We're going to be jumping into some conspiracy theories. So excited for that. Keep going with the true crime. Let us know if there are cases or conspiracy theories you want to jump into with us. We would love feedback and love ideas from you.
Absolutely. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us comments. We do want to hear your feedback. If you do leave a rating, please leave a 5-star, but you can most certainly put your comments and concerns into the comment, and we will definitely read those.
Yes, give us your feedback, and follow us on Instagram and YouTube if that's not where you're already watching us.
Absolutely. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
All right. See you next time.